Hello! I think this might be my most requested video. It's all about how to mix skin tones with watercolour, and I'm so excited to share what I know with you guys. This video is split up into sections, so if you want to check out the timestamps below, then go ahead. So we're going to go through fundamental colour theory when it comes to skin tones. We're going to go through some troubleshooting. I'm going to take you through how to go from a light skin tone through to a dark skin tone, how to make variations on your skin tones, and then at the end, just a bit of experimentation with all the different reds and yellows and blues in my palette. So let's just get started, because it's a long one. Get comfy, make a cup of tea, and see you in a sec. So to get started, we absolutely need to go through some fundamental colour theory. It doesn't matter how experienced you are, I know I need to refresh my memory on it all the time, so stick with me while I go through this. I am going to start any good skin tone with a red. This is Pyrrole red. A yellow. This is Hansa yellow medium. And French ultramarine, because it's slightly warmer than normal ultramarine blue. It's my favourite blue colour in the world. And I'm going to paint a very basic colour wheel. So I'm going to start with red. And then yellow, and then blue. Then I'm going to mix those primaries together to get our secondary colours. So I've got a nice green there. Ooh, I nearly put it in the wrong place. A nice green, orange, and purple. So you might be asking, why does the colour wheel have anything to do with mixing skin tones? And it's all about neutralising primary and secondary colours. So if you take any pairing complementary colour, blue and orange, yellow and purple, and red and green, in the middle of those two mixtures with even amounts of pigment, you're going to get a neutralised colour. So I'm going to show you with blue and orange. So I'm going to take a little bit of my French ultramarine, mix it with the orange I made over here. I need a little bit more red in there. And you can already see on my palette that I've got this almost grey colour. And that is the foundation for painting skin tones, believe it or not. So just to recap, what I mixed together were blue and orange, and in equal parts, they create this middle ground, which is almost grey. The same would be done if you mixed red and green, and the same would be done if you mixed purple and yellow together as well. So what I want to do first is go through the fundamental building blocks of making skin tone and some troubleshooting for when you're mixing. This is very, very simple. I always start my skin tone with red. I always start mixing it with some red. So there we go, I put my Pyrrole red in there. Then I add the yellow to make a nice orange colour. I'm actually just going to make that a little bit stronger. Then I'll add in some French ultramarine to just neutralise it and knock back some of that vibrancy. So that's what I've done using this logic here of mixing the blue, the yellow and the red, or if you'd like to think about it, combining the red and the yellow to make orange. I've made a neutralised skin tone in the middle. Now I haven't used exactly the same amounts of pigment. I've used probably equal parts red and yellow and then a tiny bit of blue. But I always start, no matter how light or dark the skin tone is, with red and yellow and then adding a dash of blue. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to swatch it down here so you can see what that looks like on the paper. So it's nice and neutralized, it's not bright and zingy and orangey. That blue has really knocked out quite a lot of the vibrancy. But what if your mixture is too orange? So this is one that I've just mixed up. It's possibly, you might feel for the mood of your painting, that this is too orange. So we're going to find orange on the colour wheel, and we're going to add its opposite complementary colour, which is blue. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit more blue to the mixture. And that has knocked out the vibrancy that you had from the more orange skin tone there. What do you do if your skin tone leans a bit green? You find green on the colour wheel and you add a little bit of red. So I'm going to do that now. It's all going to start getting quite dark in a moment because I'm just adding more and more and more pigment. And then we get back to a neutralised skin tone there. And if your skin tone is looking a little bit too purple, we find purple on the colour wheel and we add yellow. Now for purple, I find it's a little bit of a strange one. If it's leaning purple, it doesn't always help to just add yellow. I find that it helps bring it back to sort of a nice middle ground. It helps to add a little bit of red. So there we go. Let's try that. And there we go, we've knocked loads of the... Yeah, see, I need a little bit more red in there. But you can see that it's knocked out the purple hue to it. So it has done its job. It's just maybe not as warm as I'd like it to be. There we go. That should be better. That's nice. There you go. So if it's too orange or too green or too purple, you know what to do to get back to a neutralized state. There's a good building block for a good skin tone. Now I'm going to show you what to do to make skin tones darker. So we're going to go from light to dark here, and it's really simple. So I'm just going to start with, oh crap, too much red. I'm going to start with my red again. Add in some Hansa yellow to get to that peachy orange colour. And then because I'm going to go to quite dark down here, I don't actually want to use the French ultramarine I've been using. French ultramarine can granulate. And I did a little test swatch bit earlier, and basically it can do this. You see there? So if you're doing something quite expressive, that's great because you'll get loads of lovely texture in there. But if you want to do something that's a lot smoother like I do, with making gradients and blending and dragging and stuff, then French ultramarine will not be for you if you're making a darker skin tone. So play around with the blues in your kit. I can't show you what French ultramarine I'm using because I've been testing it for someone and it's not ready. But it's extra fine, and it is it granulates a lot less. It's really nice. So I'm going to use that to neutralize my orange skin tone base. I'm going to paint my first tile there. All I'm going to do to make my skin tone darker as I go across these tiles is add more of the colours in, always starting with red, then adding some yellow, and then neutralising with blue. So a little tip as you're working your way down the scale, if you're following along with me, is you need to increase the proportion of blue. So you notice with very pale skin tones, I used a very small ratio of blue compared to the red and the yellow. As your skin tone gets darker, you need to increase that ratio of blue to meet or exceed the red and the yellow. But depending on what colours you've got in your palette, that might change. So you can see now that we've got quite a thick mixture of paint whereby my streaks from my brush are being left on the palette. So that's the kind of consistency you want to get to when you're sort of at this end of the spectrum. And at this point, the blue that I've added into the mixture is exceeding the amount of red and yellow. So this is where the mixtures really start to change in terms of their proportions of their basic primary colours. And then the final square. For this next step, I'm going to show you subtle variations in skin tone. So I'm going to use a light skin tone for this. And I've already painted that first tile. It's a similar mixture to what we started with. And they're going to be really slight variations. So it's really just to show you that by adding a tiny bit of another colour in, you can get a completely different tone for the mood of your painting. So this one I added a little bit more blue in and a little bit more red. So it's a little bit more rosy and purple. We've got quite a neutral tone here, a little bit more red there. If I add a little bit more yellow in, it sort of neutralizes the purplish tone of the other one. If I add even more yellow, it starts to lean that way. If I add a little bit more blue, we get something sort of similar to here, but it's a little bit more grayed off. It's not quite as vibrant as this one. If I add a little bit more red, we'll get a slightly rosier skin tone that doesn't have the blue in it like it did over here. And then if I add a little bit more red, we will obviously get something even more rosy than that. And this is why using 3 primary colours is so much more useful than using the primary and its opposite secondary to make the skin tone. If you're using all 3, you've got more levers to pull, more colours to add in to start tweaking your mixtures so that you can get a really, really precise colour when you're painting skin. And you can do the same thing when you're painting much darker skin tones too. Want to add in a fair amount of blue. Need even more than that. This is how much blue you need to add in when you're making a darker skin tone. So I think we're there. No, I need a bit more yellow. Okay, so we'll start here. Quite a warm skin tone. And then if I just add loads of blue, yeah, it's not like subtle tweaks like I was making with the lighter skin tones. You have to go in quite heavy with the pigment if you want to change it. So this will be a much cooler skin tone because I've added a lot of blue in. Then if I add a lot of yellow, I might get something with a slightly green undertone. Something that looks similar to sort of burnt umber. So you can see we've got 3 very different skin tones by adding a bit more red, a bit more blue, and a bit more yellow. So I've just added water to that first one, and it's interesting. I wanted to show you how grey that is when it's watered down, and how not grey it is when it's really highly pigmented. So this is almost like the perfect neutralization of your primary colours. There's probably equal parts red, yellow and blue in there because it really is quite grey. Add a bit more red. And again we get a slightly rosier mixture, which probably is too rosy actually. Mix that in a little bit better. There we go, that's better. And then adding some blue. Then lastly, I'm going to play with my Winsor & Newton palette. Oh, my green's trying to escape. Oh no! Then lastly, I'm going to play with some colours in my Winsor & Newton set, just because I've got more colours than I do in my Daniel Smith collection. And we're going to play with different variations of reds, blues and yellows, which is always a bit exciting. So I've already done Pyrrole Red, a warm yellow. This is slightly different to the Hansa yellow. I think it's benzimidazole yellow, but I can never tell from pigment numbers. And ultramarine blue, French ultramarine. So this time, why don't we play with some alizarin crimson. We'll use the warm yellow again. You gotta excuse the state of my palette, it's grim. I'm not very controlled when it comes to keeping things like this looking nice. It's, I mean, forget the tin lid. That's a hot mess, isn't it? So anyway, I'm back to my orange skin tone with alizarin crimson and the medium and the Windsor yellow. And then I'm going to use some indanthrone blue. So this is quite a sort of grey blue, which is quite nice. But this is quite a good blue actually, because it doesn't granulate as much. It's quite lovely. So in fact, I'm going to go for a little bit more red in there. A little bit more yellow because it's looking a bit purple. There we go. We'll paint that in there. So that was alizarin crimson, Windsor yellow and indanthrone blue. Next, why don't we keep the indanthrone blue and I'll go with pyrrole red, which I've been doing throughout this tutorial. There we've got our orange colour and some indanthrone blue again. Paint that in there. That's maybe a bit too purple again. A bit more yellow. And a little bit more of the pyrrole red. Oof. Bit too much. There we go. That's better. Let's try the alizarin crimson in a much stronger mixture. Do the same thing as the first one. The Windsor yellow again. And then, because this is a darker skin tone, I want to get quite a lot of this indanthrone blue up. Okay, such a lovely blue. Oh, that is quite grey, but I'm going to show you it because this is the whole point of experimentation. It's possibly a little bit purple as well. It's lovely, lovely skin tone depending on the mood of your painting or the person that you're painting even. If I try and make that a little bit less grey, I want to add in some yellow and some red. Here we are, it's going to be a lot warmer. Yeah. So you can use basically anything that's in your palette. As long as they are primary colours, it doesn't matter what primary colours they are, except for cerulean blue. I'm going to start with that actually, why not? Cerulean blue is really difficult because it's hard to pick up the colour. I'm going really about face here. I'm starting with green, so clever. I normally start with orange, but anyway. Good lesson here though, because if we're starting with green, we want to add in the colour that's opposite to it on the colour wheel, and that is red. So let's add that in. That's really quite red. See, you think you've got a lot of cerulean blue and you really haven't. So let's try that again. Blue. I also don't like using cerulean blue because it's quite chalky, the pigment is very heavy and it separates a lot. So it's one of those that I try and stay away from. What was I using? Pyrrole red. And it's quite difficult to mix. You can see me going round and round and round in circles with this one. There we go, it's quite grey, but let's see what that looks like on the paper. And I'll show you what that looks like when it's dry. It's not, still actually not hugely happy with that. Very, very, very difficult to mix because the blue has such a little impact on the trio that it's, that's a bit better. Yeah, right, I'll show you that when that's dry, and we're going to see split pigment and all sorts. And then why not, I'll show you some magenta. Magenta's a bit of an odd one because it's so pink. I mean, it's not really a primary colour, as in like it's not red, but it is interesting. Let's go with the medium yellow again. Got a nice orange colour there. And why not go with some phthalo blue? I think it's Windsor blue, but I think that's phthalo blue. Need a bit more red. It's looking a bit grey. And a little bit more yellow. Actually have quite a nice olivey kind of colour. Yeah, that's lovely actually. So this is the importance of swatching and trying out all of the colours in your set, because you might find that certain colours in there are best for certain depths of skin tone. Why don't we try and make that a little bit warmer again. A little bit of magenta, a little bit of yellow. See what that looks like. I'm actually won over by the magenta, I have to say. I didn't think I'd ever say that, but I am. So there we go. And you can already see with the cerulean blue in this swatch here that the colours are starting to separate. So that's why I don't advise cerulean blue. Like I said, the pigment is just too heavy. You don't get enough colour out of it. And it's too light as well. It's too pale in itself to make any sort of real impact on skin tones. So thank you for watching. I hope you learned a lot. And if you have any questions, as always, pop them in the comments below. Thank you a huge amount to my patrons. Your support means everything. And I will catch you in the next video. Take care, guys. Bye.